took our money and turned it into weapons, bunkers, and ammo. And now we're destroying those weapons, and you're writing, Mr. President, that Grievous is wrong.
40 years. That's how long Iran spent building one of the most elaborate coastal defense systems the world has ever seen. Layer by layer, island by island, missile, everything calculated for a single purpose, to prevent any Western naval force from crossing. And for 30 straight days, the United States Navy launched 850 Tomahawk missiles and deployed 3 carrier strike groups. They destroyed more than 13,000 military targets, and still, the strait remained closed. With 21 nautical miles of water controlled by a system, it doesn't rely on courage, but on geometry. And that's exactly what no one has been telling you. Iran didn't build a defensive line. It built an equation. Passive naval mines laid before the first shot was even fired. Islands turned into fortresses with anti-ship missiles flying 15 meters above the water, below the radar of most ships. Mobile launchers emerging from tunnels carved into mountains, firing within 90 seconds and disappearing before satellites can capture the correct exit point. This isn't improvised defense. This is 40 years of engineering designed for a specific enemy, with a specific weapon, arriving in a specific way. And that's exactly where Iran miscalculated. Because the enemy didn't come the way they expected, it didn't come by sea. It didn't come from landing craft launching off the deck of a ship while soldiers charged through waves with rifles in hand. It came from the sky, and when the USS Tripoli entered the Central Command area, carrying 3,500 Marines and F-35Bs, on the seabed, mines. On the horizon, island-based missile systems. Inland, tunnel-based launchers that satellites can detect but cannot predict. Each layer was designed to neutralize a specific response. You destroy the radar. The launcher has already moved. You sink the surface ship. The mine was already there. You try to sweep the mines. The minesweeper's exposed to every coastal missile still operational. It's a loop. And for 30 days, the Navy pulled on that rope without being able to untie the knot, until someone realized the solution wasn't in the sea. It was in changing the entire approach. The MV-2 Osprey isn't a helicopter. It isn't an airplane. It's both at the same time that distinction matters more than any weapon statistic. Its twin nacelles rotate 90 degrees in 12 seconds. Vertical for helicopter-style takeoff, horizontal for turboprop flight. 12 seconds to completely transform the type of threat Iran needs to intercept, and that transformation collapses for decades of defensive planning all at once. A conventional assault helicopter the kind Iran spent years calibrating its systems to shoot down. Flies at 140 knots with a combat radius of 200 nautical miles. The Osprey flies at 270 knots, almostable, with a 390 nautical mile range, almost double again, and it cruises at 15,000 feet. The most common Iranian manpads, has an effective engagement ceiling of 11,500 feet against targets below 400 knots. The Osprey in cruise is physically outside the missile's envelope. This isn't tactics, it's physics. The missile simply can't reach it. That changes the calculation for island garrisons in a way that can't be fixed with more soldiers. A unit positioned to intercept a helicopter at 140 knots has a reaction window measured in minutes, with an Osprey at 270. Detection at 20 nautical miles leaves less than 4 minutes between radar contact and landing. 4 minutes to activate positions, power up systems, coordinate a response. Under normal conditions with intact communications and functioning command chains, it would already be tight. After 30 days of systematic strikes on communication nodes and command centers, Iran's network wasn't intact. It was fragmented. Orders that once moved through integrated systems now traveled by radio, by messenger, by assumption. A 4-minute window becomes noise inside a dysfunctional system. The mission profile this enables is simple to describe and devastating to face. Ospreys launch from the Tripoli 200 nautical miles away, fly at 15,000 feet above every mine Iran is already laid on the seabed, and land vertically on the target island. 24 Marines per aircraft, 12 aircraft per Wave 2, 188 Marines in the first insertion. CH-53K King Stallions follow with artillery. AH-1Z Vipers and F-35BS suppress the landing zone and maintain air superiority. 40 years of coastal defense built for an enemy arriving by water, and the enemy came through the sky, above every mine, below every radar, before any possible reaction. The 31st MEU rehearsed this exact sequence during Exercise Iron Fist with Japan 3 weeks before deployment. This wasn't improvisation. It was a rehearsal. And while Iran counted ships on the horizon, the Ospreys were already airborne. Iran's parliament put a number on the table: 150,000 soldiers. The goal was clear: to project an overwhelming ratio, 5,000 Marines against 150,000 troops, 30 to 1. On the surface, that sounds decisive, but that number ignores the single variable that determines territorial battles, where both sides meet and who chooses that point. 150,000 troops spread across 1,000 miles of Iranian coastline equals 150 men per mile. Military analysts estimate each island would require 2,000 troops for proper defense. Actual garrisons likely fall between 300 and 500. That's not speculation. That's simple. Now look at the other side. 5 amphibious ships, each acting as a launch platform for Ospreys. At 15 knots, these ships select the point of attack. Iran doesn't know whether the target is Abu Musa, Larak, or Bandar Abbas. It can't know, so it has to wait spread thin. The Marines choose one island, concentrate 550 troops onto 5 square miles, and arrive before reinforcements can cross the sea. The ratio is in 30 to 1. On the chosen island, at the chosen time, it becomes 2 to 1 in favor of the attacker. It's the oldest principle of war. The attacker chooses the point and concentrates force. The defender must be everywhere and becomes thin. It belongs to whoever has more mobility. And once the landing happens, the island becomes isolated. No air defense, no surface navy, no functioning supply line. The men on the island are all the men that'll be. No extra ammunition arrives. The only thing growing is the number of Ospreys ready. 30 days of epic fury left Iran's air defense network silenced. More than 60 vessels at the bottom of the Gulf. Missile factories destroyed, and drone stockpiles depleted with no possibility of replenishment because import routes are controlled by the U.S. Navy. What remains are mines that cannot be replaced. Fleet of Ghadir-class submarines with dying batteries and no safe port to recharge. The equation doesn't favor the side with more soldiers on paper. It favors the side that can still choose where the battle happens. There's a phrase from a retired U.S. Navy captain that kept circulating in analysis of this conflict. We're in the third quarter of this operation. He said that when the Marines embarked, the first quarter destroyed air defenses. The second sank the Iranian Navy and strangled supply lines. What complicates the fourth quarter is what lies beyond the coast. Iran has vast interior depth, and sealing the coastline doesn't automatically collapse everything inland. Iran has vast interior depth, and sealing the coastline doesn't automatically collapse everything inland. That's where the logic of the 82nd Airborne Division comes in. Paratroopers don't use beaches. They exist to bypass the coastal zone entirely, land on strategic airfields deep inside enemy territory, and cut the supply lines feeding what defenses remain. Before that, Atensi warthogs from Idaho and Michigan solve a specific mathematical problem: destroying swarms of fast-attacking craft and cracking coastal bunkers. Solve a specific mathematical problem: destroying swarms of fast-attacking craft and cracking coastal bunkers in the seconds before Ospreys descend. And when the last boot is about to touch the ground, the EA-37B Compass call making its combat debut blinds, remaining radars and jams command frequencies. Blinds remaining radars and jams command frequencies. The defenders who made it that far are now fighting in the dark. The defenders who made it that far are now fighting in the dark. 40 years of planning to stop ships. 40 years of planning to stop ships. The ships stayed on the horizon while the assault came from the sky. 40 years of mines to block beaches. The beaches stayed empty while Ospreys flew overhead. 40 years of missiles calibrated to Cold War helicopter speeds. The Osprey arrived nearly twice as fast. The Osprey arrived nearly twice as fast. Twice as high, far beyond what those missiles could reach. This isn't humiliation. It's what happens when a solution is built for one problem and the problem changes shape without warning. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just water. It's 20% of the world's energy supply passing through a 21 nautical mile choke point. Supertankers frozen, global economy suspended. And the turning point didn't come from more firepower. It came from understanding that control requires human presence. So tell us, is there any conflict, operation, or military decision you've always wanted to truly understand from the inside? Write it in the comments. This community decides what comes next.